Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Firebase After Hours, where we do interesting stuff with Firebase technology, explore what's new, try out new stuff, and hopefully show you interesting things that inspire you to build amazing things with Firebase. Before we start, I'll show our community guidelines. So we ask everybody to please be excellent to each other, and that literally just means don't call each other names and be nice to each other on the live chat. We already can see some people posting that they're super excited for this one. I am too, because we have a really great guest today and an amazing topic. But before we bring our guest on, let me bring on my co-host, Noe. And here he is. Noe.
Hey. You can hear me, I assume.
I can.
I wasn't sure if there was a bit you wanted me to do when you're like, and I'm going to bring on Noe. And
So here's the thing. I've watched this comedian. His name is, what's his name? It's a Finnish comedian. He makes fun of, he tells people about his challenges with the English language. So one of the things that he told people is like, when you meet somebody in the United States, they'll say, "What's up?" And it took him a long time to figure out what's the correct answer to "what's up." And apparently he said, the correct answer to "what's up" is "what's up." And he said, yeah. I'm not answering a question, so it feels wrong for me, but the other person is happy.
Yeah, well, it's also like when you run into somebody and you're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Right? You're not asking them how they're doing. You're just saying hi, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it feels "what's up" is like, it's, you could even shorten it to "zup," right?
Yeah.
Yep, "zup."
Zup.
Yeah. Amazing. It's good to see you. I feel like it's been a while since we last talked. Maybe it was just because I was on vacation, but were you out as well?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Next time we should just go on vacation together, and then we'll have all the time in the world to talk.
Yeah, let's do an around the world trip. So I visit you and you visit me, but we should synchronize.
It's not at the same time, right?
It's not. Yeah, let's not do a house swap. All right. So, what are we talking about today, Nui?
So you emailed me the show notes, and I of course have read them. So I know exactly.
Please give me a quick summary.
Yes. Join host Peter Fries and Noe Dev as they chat with Jeff Huang, software engineer, about building a NotebookLM clone with Genkit. I believe that's what we're talking about.
That sounds amazing.
I just pulled that off the top of my head.
All right, so should we bring on Jeff and see what he has to say? All right, so let's see. His camera is black. Oh, there he is. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Good. Well, you guys are too funny.
We try our best. So, Jeff, maybe I think, so we know you, obviously, but we've just figured, so before we went on the call, Jeff and Noe talked about where they're from and, like, where are you really from? Jeff was trying to guess if Noe actually is American or not. So I think, it would be interesting for people to get to know you a little bit, what you do on the Firebase team. So maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself, and then we can do another icebreaker.
Yeah. So I work on the Genkit team. I've been here for about 5 years now. Back then when I joined, I worked on Firebase extensions. So really big fan of Firebase throughout my whole time at Google. And before then, I'm kind of a California native, so I've always lived here. But
Did the internet go out?
I
think we lost Peter.
Oh, okay, not me. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll just blame Peter. It's fine. We're still live though, so
okay.
Yeah. Kevin also noticed stream went down, but now we're back.
Oh, okay.
So,
Cool.
do you want to tell me about yourself? California native is where you got cut off.
Oh yeah, California native. I've been in California like pretty much my whole life. Love the weather and everything. And yeah, I mean, before Google, I was an indie hacker, and I built a ton of like various like products. And Firebase was the one thing that I used like under the hood for all of these things. And so it's, Firebase holds a special place in my heart.
Gotcha. So, how did you find configuring like security rules when you first started? Because when I first started using Firebase, I would just skip configuring security rules. Yeah. But I never built anything that gained any steam, right? So I never shared my projects. I'd always just be like, Mom, look at what I built, right? And so everybody in the world could have pen tested my apps. Please don't go looking for my apps and pen test them. Yeah. So did you find that experience easy, hard, or?
Let's see. I joined Google in 2020, and I used Firebase before then. I would say, like, I probably didn't set up my rules perfectly correctly all the way. Like, I probably set up some rules, and I had a Flask backend that was like protecting me from. And so I wasn't using the front end directly calling the backend, and so that's kind of how I avoided some of those issues. But you're totally right. I don't want to say it live, but I definitely did not set them up correctly. But in the world of AI, now I'm able to set them up a lot better because I have AI ingest the rules and better configurations that are smarter than my time back then.
Cool. So I think today you wanted to show us something that you built, right? The NotebookLM clone.
Yeah. So let me just share a little bit of context on that project. So I was really inspired by NotebookLM because I love podcasts, and when I played with it, it was kind of a magical experience for me because there's like always things that I want to know about, but I don't have enough time to like fully dive into and understand. And I drive my girlfriend to and from work every day, and so I need something to do in those 20-minute bites. And so I really like NotebookLM for that because it kind of helps me keep my mind active during these chunks of time where I have to do something, but I can't really be fully active. And I like that NotebookLM takes, I especially feed in like LLM stuff to help me keep up to date with Genkit. And so I like whenever there's like new LLM stuff, I like to have NotebookLM kind of simplify it for me so that it's a little bit easier to digest. So that's why I was inspired to build a NotebookLM clone with Genkit, and it's not a full-on clone. It's mainly I really like podcasts, and I wanted to create like an API where I could create a bunch of different types of podcasts easily, kind of like NotebookLM. And yeah, maybe I can show you a quick demo of what it might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. While you bring that up, which screen is it? Can you remind me?
Do you have three?
Yes, I have 4 screens from you.
Oh, okay. So let's pull up that one.
Excellent.
Okay. So essentially this is what I did. So I created something where you can kind of just call an API to.
Hey, Jeff, before we continue, I know you could see your screen, but We're traveling over the internet thousands of miles. Yeah, just make it really uncomfortable for yourself, and then it's usually like pretty comfortable for everybody else.
Okay. Is this good?
Yeah. And then you can also collapse the file browser on the left, and then that should get us really. You should just be able to hit the little button at the top. Is that not doing it for you? There we go. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So essentially the thing I wanted to make was a little API or library so that it was easy for me to generate these podcasts and with just a method. And you can kind of just specify the different configurations, like who's speaking, what's the name of the podcast, what's the format. We can do like interviews or roundtables or different formats or debates. And then it uploads this into a Firebase storage bucket. And then that's basically the end to end. And so the input is essentially a configuration and the output is some audio file. And it works for, I mean, I'm still kind of playing around with like what kind of things it can do, because it supports like really any format. You can add in new formats. So the one that I started with was like there's like a white paper, a prompt engineering white paper published yesterday for like prompt engineering tricks, and I just ran that through my system earlier because I kind of wanted to understand what it was. So yeah, that's basically what I made.
Very cool. So Peter, I'm going to let you ask the first question since you're back.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a modern seance. Peter, can you hear us? Are you there, Peter?
I can hear myself with a slight echo, so hopefully that's not happening for you. So can you hear me once or twice?
I can hear you once.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know what happened. So my first question would be, can we listen to that podcast?
Yeah, let's take a look.
I listened.
So it's am I sharing it? Are you able to hear it?
I'm not hear it.
Okay, I have to share this extra one because it opened up a new window.
And we have a live question, which is, before you said you were getting the AI to write your security rules, did the AI write any of this AI program? AI write any of this?
Oh, this thing right here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. In fact, I worked on this on my, I worked on this on my personal laptop because I wanted to use inside Google, we can't use all these like modern tools that everyone's using, like Cursor. And so I really wanted to use this as an opportunity to figure out like what is the modern dev workflow that would work really well with the Firebase developer. And that's kind of like also going back into my previous life as an indie hacker, like what would I have wanted back then if I could? And so no, this is like at least 50% AI generated with my prompting using Cursor, and Firebase and everything was added as a documentation so that I could, ask questions inside Cursor to like. So yeah, most of this is AI driven workflow for sure. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so this is the podcast. It was generated using Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's see if it works.
Are we supposed to hear something? Oh, you know what?
Yeah. Prompt and...
There we go. This is it. Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here and discuss this rapidly evolving field.
To start, many of our listeners are hearing more and more about prompt engineering. Could you define it for us in simple terms?
Certainly. At its core, prompt engineering is, as Lee Boonstra puts it in their recent white paper, the process of designing high-quality prompts that guide LLMs to produce accurate outputs. Essentially, It's the art and science of crafting the input you give to a large language model to get the desired response. It's about communicating effectively with AI.
Boonstra's paper also states, you don't need to be a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. Everyone can write a prompt. Do you agree with this broad accessibility?
Absolutely. While advanced techniques require deeper understanding, the fundamental act of writing a prompt is accessible to anyone. The key is that it's an iterative process. We all start somewhere, and with practice and understanding some core principles, anyone can improve their ability to elicit useful responses from LLMs.
The paper also emphasizes that inadequate prompts
Jeff, can I
can
ask
lead
a
to
question?
ambiguous, inaccurate responses.
Yeah, let me pause.
Are there like other voices you could have used, or are those like where'd you find these voices? Are they from like the Google Cloud text-to-speech API?
Yeah. So good question. There's the Google Cloud text-to-speech API. Those are the defaults. They're not necessarily the best ones because now that I looked at the API again yesterday. Now I worked on this project like maybe 5 months ago, but now that I look at the API today, there's like new features, including like multiple voices, and so you can actually feed in a back and forth script like this, and it will actually be able to kind of do the synthesis for you, and that's actually, I think, something in that is a little bit better because they kind of weave in natural pauses. I don't know, but like there's something there.
Like this, right? Where you say like natural pauses and I say, yeah. And then you said something better there, right? Yeah. Okay.
So that's one thing that could have been done. There are also just, I think I used like from 5 months ago, that was close to the state of the art. But I think since then there are new voices. It's called the chirp model that I saw. And those ones, that's what at least that's what I saw last night. Let me share the tab real quick.
Ooh, I see like a chirp and chirp 2.
Yeah. Chirp 3 HD voices. These are the ones that are the most let's see if we can play this.
Different worlds and landscapes, and I just can't get enough of it.
So this is the state of the art now, and I think this is if I were to do this again, I would use these voices. But yeah,
yeah, that sounds a lot more natural because when you first played it, I was like, it sounds a bit too robotic to me. Like it does sound good, but it still sounded like a little. I would expect more like how people have that natural intuition in their, or not intuition, intonation of their voices, and they kind of pop. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, cool. And then when you were using Genkit, like what did you just run this as a flow or via command line, or do you have like a magic command that you run that spins up the server and then you type some things in, or can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Let me pull up the code again. So I do have a server running where let's see. Yeah, it basically exposes a route called synthesis route, and this executes that. This basically exposes the library that I built, the synthesize function, and just takes whatever input you have and output, and then uploads the file to storage, and then this result contains that storage URL.
What is inside the synthesize request? Like how much feeding do you have to give to the AI to even come up with a script?
Yeah, good question. So it's up to you. So you have to provide one of these formats, either a debate, roundtable, or interview, and each of these like have their own schema. So let's do like interview, for example. You have to provide an interviewee name, a topic, number of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the base that you need to provide is like, you need to provide the speakers. And that includes the voice and some context around who they are. And that kind of helps guide what they end up talking about. You need to provide like kind of some general stuff like where to upload the file, but that's pretty much it. And there's also a way to provide more information, like what hooks you want to use. If you want to, so basically, essentially, all of this is like, if you don't provide the information, the AI will infer it. And if you want to provide the information, you can, and you can guide it more carefully. But
so is there like for the interview, is it like default to like a gotcha style interview? I think that'd be some fun. Like, oh, Peter, we're here to talk to you about, your OKRs. And do you think you did a good job with them this year?
Well, we could totally tune the prompt to have, like we could have a style or something.
Okay, yeah.
Jeff, before you do that, can you try something? Because we can only hear you at the moment, so it's modern day sounds like Noe says, but we can't see you. Can you try on the camera button to turn your camera on and off?
Peter, are we live? It says
we are. So
we have 17 viewers.
Yeah, we are live. So.
Oh.
So thanks everybody for coming back. And we promise to no experiments, no more. I have no idea what happened, to be honest. Noe, when we talked about doing those live streams, one of the things that you said we should do is, be real and, show that stuff doesn't always work. Was this the kind of thing you had in mind?
This was not at all what I had intended for that.
Yeah, it's all good. So hopefully we've gotten back most of the people that were on the old stream. We'll probably we should probably post a link, so maybe Clarissa and team can do that. And while we wait for more people to join, we never got around to doing our tabs versus spaces game. So why don't we do that? Wait a couple of more minutes, and then once people are back, we can go back into the main conversation, right? So let's do that. So everybody who's on the stream now, including us three, let's talk about tabs versus spaces. So what kind of person are you? Tabs versus spaces. I'll go first. So I am spaces, and I typically use two spaces, which I hated in the beginning when I first started. I was like, why is everybody using two spaces on the Firebase team? And people were like, well, it's the rule over here, man. Get used to it. If you try to use different spacing, then the linter will yell at you. So I got used to it. And now I see more and more people use two spaces. But I hit the tab key to insert them. So I'm not the kind of person who does da-dong, da-dong, da-dong on the space key most of the time. How about you, Jeff?
I used to do tabs when I coded more in Python. Now that I'm using more TypeScript, JavaScript, I think something feels a little weird about tabs. I don't know what it is, but it just something feels weird about it. But I totally understand, like, the four spaces is just so much, so much boilerplate or so much work there. But like, now that tooling has gotten so good that it's automatically doing the two spaces and four spaces, and I'm just pressing enter, I'm just like, oh, thank God. No one has to yell at me anymore about that.
I think it's interesting that you said that you prefer tabs in Python over spaces, because when I wrote a lot of Python, the issue that I had was I started just by pressing tab because like I was only writing code on my own machine and never sharing it. But then once I started sharing it, the tabs that people would have set up on their machines were different and like varied between editors. So I would send the Python file to somebody and then they would open it and be like, your indentation is all wrong. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, it's like, you have like 6 spaces for like every new line. And it just like, I like forward. I'm like, whatever. Right. And it wasn't until probably 2015 that I got like really into spaces, but now I just pre-minify all my code. So I don't do any spaces. I just write all in one line, just throw in semicolons.
Yeah.
Unless I'm writing yo, right? And then it forces it on you.
So people on the live chat are in favor of tabs, apparently. So
when you say it looks like the majority of people are.
Yeah. So 83%. So that is kind of amazing. So we'll let it go for a couple more minutes. And then
I'm gonna have to let it go emotionally too.
Yeah. Totally. So Jeff, why don't we try to bring back on your screen? So can you start sharing your screens and then we can see if we can bring that back on. So, and then we can go back into the conversation about how you built that. So I can see one of your screens. Okay, here it is. Great. Okay.
I think this one.
Okay, I can see the second one. Okay.
And then the third window would be my... I can cast this also, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Wait, I can't hear it. Well, it's funny. So whenever a screen joins, I can hear that. Jeff's screen joined. I didn't hear it for the third one though, so I can see 2 of your screens. Did you share the third one?
I shared a tab.
Okay.
The third one is a Chrome, but
yeah.
No.
Well, the third one. Okay, I'll show the actual Chrome as a third window then.
Okay. Cool.
All right. A third window, right? Yeah.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
All right. So I think we were looking at the Zord models there, right? So so okay, it seems like you're able to model those podcast options right there. So one of the things that I noticed when we were listening to the podcast, it seemed like the roles weren't quite clear between them, right? So one person started asking questions, and then the male host started answering from what they read about the thing in the paper, and then the female host jumped in and also recited from the paper, which sounded a little bit funny to me, right? Because I would have expected that she would say, "Oh yeah, that's great," or I have a question about that. So my question to you is, how does that part work? So how did you, how does the plan of record, if you will, work? How do you plan how the podcast is going to go?
Yeah, good question. So we define for an interview, we define like who's the interviewer and who's the speaker, and the breakdown of planning a podcast is you first take the raw text or the raw source that's a PDF, and you get the text, and the first flow is to summarize it. So this is my prompt here. You have a piece of text, provide an extremely thorough summary analysis of the input source, provide a short list of direct quotes or excerpts to reference, and then give a bullet list outline. So that's the first step, is to basically turn it into something that's like an analysis piece. And then the second step would be to generate discussion topics from that summary. So the input is the summary from the first step, and then this basically generates a series of things that are potentially interesting to talk about. And then the final step is to take those inputs and turn it into a script between two speakers. And so that's basically the planning step. And that gets us to the point where we have a script between two speakers, and that we just need to turn that into an actual audio file.
Okay, so does that also mean that the entire conversation is pretty much set in stone once this flow has finished, and what we're listening to already is the final conversation, and there is nothing actually changing once we start playing the podcast, or once it's generated?
Oh yeah. So essentially so we pre-plan a script, and then we generate a full file, and then by the time that we're listening to it, it's a already generated MP3 file that's sitting in Firebase storage.
So I know that we've been talking about human in the loop a lot in Genkit. So just as a thought experiment, do you think that this would be something that you could integrate into this app and somehow make it possible for the human to interact with the two hosts?
Yeah, totally. I think, I guess the first thing is we have an input source that's created into the notebook, right? And so very simple way is to just chat with the source, chat with the PDF. That's one way. I think the second way is Google now has like a bidirectional streaming API where you can chat with someone, and you can basically create a profile for who that person is that you're chatting with. And I'm not exactly sure. I think it's an agent where you just provide that all that information can just be the context. But that's kind of how I imagine. If you wanted to implement a Q&A between a host, that's how it might be done.
Okay, so do you think, in technical terms, you would split the conversation into individual chunks of audio that you would play, and then you would use that live streaming API to listen to what the user might be saying? And if they are saying something, you would parse that using another flow probably, and then try to inject it at a suitable moment into the conversation. So basically, let the one host finish what they're saying, and then let the other host respond to what the user has said. Do you think that would be feasible, or is it? Am I thinking along the wrong lines here?
Yeah, no, I think that definitely would work. I think that if we're talking about like a human conversation where it's like we're speaking back and forth, there's a little bit more complexity to it's like a conversation where like you interrupt me sometimes, right? And it's not exactly like you wait all the way until, maybe if you're very polite, you wait until I finish, then you spend 3 seconds thinking and then you respond. But I've actually tried that a while ago with like, so Twilio makes it really easy to implement exactly that. And the experience isn't the best, because it just feels like you're talking to a robot. And like, I'm sure you get annoyed chatting with a robot, but talking to one is even worse. But I think what I have seen from Google with the bidirectional, like there is a streaming API where my understanding is that they have some way to handle interrupts and these kinds of things. But that's my intuition, is that we kind of need need something like that to be able to produce a really smooth conversation.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it's easy, right? So, and you're absolutely right. In a normal conversation, you wouldn't listen until the very end of what somebody said until you react to it, right? So just imagine somebody telling you a joke, and then you wait until, they finish to tell the entire thing, and then pause, and then you start laughing. That would be so unnatural.
Well, I mean, Peter, that's how I react to jokes. I usually wait 5 seconds because like my brain's got to parse it and be like, why was that funny?
No. Well, all joking aside, so Jeff, I think can we try generating a podcast for something right now?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, well, okay. So how about this? So this is a completely different angle, and I just downloaded this last night. I actually haven't tried it yet, but one of my favorite TV shows is The Office. And
oh yeah.
I wanted to. I personally really like episode recaps or breakdowns, and so I wanted an episode breakdown of one of my favorite Office episodes. So we could just try this and see what happens.
Yeah, sounds great. So you basically provided the summary already, and then
so I took the script. So
okay.
I went online to one of those like fanfic or fan sites, and they actually have the script, and then they also have some of these like analyses of like cultural moments in the episode, and so that's basically the input to this.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see what happens.
Oh yeah, and while we do that, if people have questions on the live stream, please send them into the live chat, and we'll answer them. This is one of the moments that reminds me of hacking in movies versus hacking in real life. So in the movie, you always have dramatic music and everything's going really quick and everybody knows what they're doing exactly. And everything's like bam, bam, bam. And in real life, it's like, it's interesting. That's funny.
Why am I getting this error? Oh, that's right. Because my code is bad. Things like that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Isn't this funny? I don't I don't know what's happening because
I think there's a different screen that we can't see.
Oh,
yeah, maybe.
Is this the terminal?
It's a terminal. Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to get this. Well, I don't know what happened, but until this call,
it works on my machine.
Yeah. Well, it's running a Genkit server, so it's doing something. But just have that.
Oh yeah, here it goes. Console logging, debugging.
It's really that bad. I'm trying to figure out what.
I'm a big fan of printf debugging, to be honest.
Yep, it works most of the time. I mean, like it's horrible if you use it in the cloud console, right? Because every single statement will be an individual entry in the log explorer, and specifically if you think you're doing a smart job and nicely format stuff and turn it into like a bunch of lines, and then it's really difficult to see all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks, this is the real life of
This is real.
software engineers at Google. We do printf debugging. But no kidding. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should be writing a flow, and then maybe it's just slow, but just make sure the actual flow is running.
So we got a really deep question on the chat from Kevin. So where do you personally think the future of AI is headed? Better AI models, agents, MCP? Noe, what do you think?
Oh no, you kicked it over to me, and I'm not ready to answer. I think that I think it's fair to say that every time I'm like, this is like where it's going to head, I'm pleasantly surprised, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think one thing that I'm still getting pleasantly surprised about is like tool calling. So generally when you add in like more than like 5 tools, the AI is just like, well, that's too many. I'm just going to throw something random at you. That's what I feel like has been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Or it like won't call the tool that I want to call, but then I find people that add in a lot of descriptions to their tools and they're like very detailed, and then they use these models with super large context windows and things like that, and it gets like a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the future I would expect there to be better tool calling, and I think a lot of what we could expect with AI is more of focused tasks getting completed via tool calling, right? There's still some level of like human elements that I want in there, but it'd be really nice to describe a task I want to complete in natural language. It's kind of like when you meet with a PM for the first time and they're like, I want this button to be blue. And you're like, oh, well, I can't make it blue. There's this YouTube video by this one guy, and he draws out on this board. He's like, can we just show the user's date in the application? He's like, well, I can't show the date because we got to go talk to like Megatron, and Megatron stores all the dates, and then we got to go to here, and this doesn't do this. And the guy's like, all right, I'll just push it back a cycle, right? It's kind of like that, right? I think we're going to reach a point where we could say like, oh, I want to send an email to my mom wishing her happy Mother's Day this Sunday, and then it just goes into Gmail and automatically schedules an email to send to my mom to send her like a happy Mother's Day email. She's modern, she doesn't use the phone, she checks her email all the time, right? It's fine. So I think that's where we could head, is these discrete tasks that should be described in a natural language. That was a very long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah.
Jeff, Peter. We'll let Jeff work. Peter.
Yeah. So I'm really blown away by what you can achieve right now. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I implemented an entire newsletter engine for my blog, just using Cursor and doing vibe coding, and it works flawlessly, right? So it is, it can generate the emails, it can generate the representation of the emails I want to show on my blog, and I've tuned it to my needs, right? So I told it, hey, this is a curated newsletter. I write an introduction, and then there is a bunch of links, and for each of those links, I write a commentary as well. And I please want to be able to store the authors of the articles that I talk about into an author file to make that reusable. So it's very specific, to be honest, I had to guide it quite heavily, but it did what I needed, and I was able to do the work of probably multiple weeks or even months in just a couple of days, right? So it took me about a week to implement the whole thing. I was literally mind blowing, and it's it's such fun to give you a prompt and then see cursor or whichever tool you're using do the work. And sometimes you need to go in and say, sorry, but you went down the wrong way, and guide it. But it's pretty amazing. And I think in the future that's going to be a lot better, right? So instead of having to guide all that much, I think it'll probably be a lot smarter about it, or ask back and say, I noticed blah 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 in your code base. Did you mean so and so? And here are two options, and I think this one would be better, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think better, higher quality, more user friendliness, and also one other thing that goes beyond AI itself. I think the input modality will be better, right? So if you watch Star Trek, they talk to the computer all of the time, but you will notice that they talk and use the console to input stuff, right? And multiple people can talk at the same time and do stuff at the same time. And I think that will be one of the things that will be much better in the future. We'll be able to do that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we will be talking to our computers all of the time, because quite honestly, I think that's horrible, especially in the office. So, but being able to use any input modalities that are suitable, I think that would be something I would look forward to.
So, Jeff, do you have an answer for what do you think the future of AI is heading? Better AI models, agents, MCPs. Can you clone me and add me to your podcast? So that way I can
Yeah, let me clone your voice.
There we go.
Yeah. Question about where the future of AI is heading. Well, I don't know. I think that agents, from what I've seen lately, the whole thinking models and adding more context and tools to agents, and being able to kind of, them being able to autonomously use a bunch of these tools and then come out an answer, I think is the kind of the short-term thing that I've seen a lot of different interfaces leverage in one way or another. So I think that's the thing I'm the most bullish about right now.
Cool. Do you want me to share your Chrome tab? Because you're back channel messaging me saying that you're ready to share something in the console.
Yeah. Well, well, basically, I got the thing running, and so it generated something. I don't know what it is yet, but we should think about it.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
All right. So
which window do we need?
I
got it right here.
Okay. Let's take a listen. I've never heard this before. I don't know what it's going to say.
We can't hear it.
Go.
We cannot hear. Yeah.
Is my screen showing?
Your screen is showing.
Yeah. Do you need to turn on sharing audio?
We'll just hide that for a second. While you're looking at that, this is probably a question for Jeff. Jeff, what are the trade-offs of using Genkit for something like this versus using Google ADK agent sub-agents approach? Having trouble choosing between the two?
Yeah, I think I think the difference is that the ADK library, from what I see, is a lot more focused on the agent, like multi-agent abstraction, which I think is totally useful. I think there are two kind of different approaches. What I have here is a little bit simpler and easier to maintain, and probably works well for a number of use cases. It does require you to kind of know a little bit more about the domain and the output that you want, and it basically gives you the control to craft it, to fine grain the result more carefully. If you're using ADK, then you're probably re-implementing this in like more agent style loop, where it's like the agent is thinking and kind of doing the process autonomously. I think there are advantages to that. For example, it's easier to implement, like if you want to carefully control the length or have like 8 discussion topics, it's easier to have an agent reliably generate 8 hooks and then know that it's done with the stopping condition and then, move on to the next step. I think the cons there is that you get a little bit less control potentially. It's a little bit more complex to implement a more advanced agent. So that's kind of how I think about it. It's like you kind of start with the approach and like how you want to handle this and implement it, and what trade-offs you want to decide between the two. It kind of depends on the use case.
So we got your screen up. Do you want to try press and play?
Okay, let's see.
So Pavel mentioned it might work if you share the tab instead.
Okay,
let's try that.
This.
Which one though?
This tab. Do you hear it?
Do you have it? No, we're not presenting yet. No, can you? Okay, yeah. Let's try it.
All right, so basketball. Yep. Every time I rewatch this episode, or honestly, anytime I'm at a party and need an anecdote, I just hear Michael, swish, 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 nothing but net. And their jaws just drop to the floor. African Americans. That's the epitome of Michael Scott's self-delusion.
Oh, completely. That delusion is the engine of the whole episode, and it's not just his supposed basketball skills, it's how his ego impacts everyone. You see it so clearly in the dynamic between Jim, Pam, and Roy. The tension on that court, especially when Roy gets aggressive with Jim and Pam's just watching, it's so charged.
Absolutely, Taylor. And Michael's team selection, pure, unadulterated stereotyping. My favorite moment is when he says, Stanley, of course. And Stanley, bless him, just deadpans. Why, of course? What's that supposed to mean? It perfectly captures Michael's casual ignorance.
While Michael's making a fool of himself on the court, we can't forget Dwight. Michael hands him the weekend work calendar, and suddenly Dwight is this mini tyrant. Jim's observation that it's the smallest amount of power I've ever seen go to someone's head is just spot on. Peak office humor.
It's classic Michael, though, isn't it? Manufacturing this high-stakes game, loser works Saturday. All to impress, well, mostly himself. And then he can barely make a shot.
And the resolution. He declares his team the winner after getting hit, claiming a, quote, flagrant personal intentional foul, only to immediately cave when the warehouse guys call him out. Then, he cancels Saturday work for everyone anyway, but his reasoning that it wouldn't prevent downsizing just undermines any authority he tried to project. It's so chaotic.
That's the core of Michael, though, his insecurity. He desperately needs to be seen as cool, as competent, especially in front of the warehouse guys. The whole Mr. Rogers nickname for Daryl is another cringeworthy example of him trying way too hard and missing the mark spectacularly.
I don't know, Jordan. I almost see his final decision as accidentally brilliant.
So it seems like there's so there are at least 3 people in the conversation. Did I get that right?
Let's see. There's 4 people.
Oh, 4 even. Okay,
4 people. Yeah, 4 people hanging out together in a low stakes, having some beers kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. I have to admit I haven't watched enough of The Office to be able to judge if it's doing a good job. But it seems like a really good conversation there. And one of the things that I thought it was 3 people, and you say it's 4. That shows that choosing the voices is really important, specifically given their synthetic I mean, for us, it's easy to single out who's speaking, even in a room full of people, right? Because it's I think human voices have much more signature, if that's the right term. But for synthetic voices, for I don't know which reasons, it's harder.
I also wonder, like, if there's maybe something missing from the text to speech for like the HD models. Because I feel like there was one spot where I heard like that was peak office humor, right? And it just like if it was like me, I'd be like, that was peak office humor, right? And I think I would put more emphasis on the right bits of the speech, right? And I thought it was better than the original voices that we heard earlier today, but I think it's just I feel like maybe there's something missing there.
So the ones that I just played right now,
good.
those are the chirp ones actually. So that's,
the HD, right?
Yeah. I think that's why I was trying to say is like, I think the latest state of the art these days, or at least what I see from the API, is that you can create a conversation with two voice, like a back and forth, and they have a native model that you feed in the script and they form the back and forth for you. I think that, like, my intuition is that that's going to perform better just because I think there's more potential for that to weave in the natural things that form a conversation. These are features that can't be described in English, but they're things that make conversation feel natural, right? And versus the synthesized, like what my algorithm does is it basically just takes all these audio scripts, generates them in a vacuum, and then stitches them together, which, right, it's clearly missing something.
Yeah, it's kind of missing the back and forth, right?
Yeah, it's interesting though. So when NotebookLM came out, I was super excited about it, and I showed one of the podcasts I generated with it to my wife, and had her listen to it, and she's like, "Oh, this is so annoying. They don't let each other finish the sentence." So apparently there is a spectrum of what people like and what they don't, and it is especially in the early days of NotebookLM, it was very, very back and forthy, and and very much agreeing with the other person, and then ending and stuff like that. So, and on top of
the
that,
rules of improv in there, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, I think you can feel that you can feel that it's more US centric in a sense, right? So it's it's very excited. So to people from other cultures, that's it feels more pronounced in a way. So I think if you want to generate stuff for other cultures, then you need to put more nuance into it, and that will be different for each culture, right? Not just for the languages, but American English and the culture in the United States is different from British English and the culture in Great Britain.
When you say American English, I think that's like a really interesting thing, because when I was younger, I felt like I could pick out more dialects and accents across the US, but like as I've gotten older, like it feels like everybody's got like that CNN accent. Like they're like, "Oh, and tonight on the news, blah, 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 blah." Like everybody like kind of talks the same now. Maybe it's just where I'm at too.
No, I think it's true. I think everyone's dialect is shifting more towards the same.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, I used to say like "jeet" and like "down the ocean" and stuff. And you guys probably have no idea what I'm saying right now.
No.
So "jeet" is like "did you eat?"
Oh.
Yeah, and then "down the ocean" is like "down to the ocean."
Oh, I thought you were saying Danny Ocean, and you were making a reference to Ocean.
No. It's like going down the ocean this weekend.
Where
we go, Jeet?
It's kind of like hella is now like a everywhere thing. Hella.
Yeah, that used to be like a Northern California thing, right?
Yeah, now it's every.
What's that?
Thing.
What's that? What does it mean? Hella or
hella, yeah.
I see. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So from what I've seen of the app, it seems like the interface to the app is mostly a script, right? So you'll have to feed it the configuration in a script, and then you let the script run, or do you have a UI for it?
I do have a UI for it. It's a little bit of bare bones. It's kind of essentially so what I've shown you, I'm running a script to generate something, but there's also a server that's serving this library, and then I have a little UI that connects to it. You'll see I have it running.
So I'm asking because I found that people always ask, now that they understand how Genkit works, they wonder how can they use it in their application, right? So how to call it from the client application. So I think that would be interesting if you can show that.
Yeah, good question. There's a number of ways to do it, depending on your setup. If you have a Next.js app, there's a plugin that works out of the box so that you can connect your front end to Genkit, and under the hood that would be deploying like an API. I believe it's just deploying some kind of API route that connects to Genkit. Now, in this particular case, I created a node server that my Node.js or I have a Next.js app that connects to a node server. And the reason I did that is because generating the podcast takes longer than 30 seconds to a minute. And so it times out on Vercel's servers. And so I found it easier to deploy it as a Node.js app or a Firebase function than have it generate through there. And initially, I did have a version where I offloaded to like a queue and generated in the background, but just because I wanted to make the example simple and easier to use, I kind of just left it as like a long-running Firebase function that takes. So
okay,
yeah, so that's essentially how I did it.
So there were a couple of really interesting things that you said. So one of the things is apparently you can run Genkit code anywhere, right? So you mentioned that you were running it on Vercel, so that's a non-Google runtime environment. It also seems like the scripts that you showed throughout our conversation here, these are basically just scripts running locally on your machine, and that is a MacBook. And I imagine that you could even run Genkit on a Raspberry Pi, right? if you're happy to wait.
Literally anywhere. I think that's the awesome part is it's super easy and flexible to port it to any environment that you want.
Yeah. So
RAM requirements.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, let me just interrupt. Are there RAM requirements? Because I feel like when I tried running Genkit on like the smallest function, I ran into issues, but it could be because I just loaded like a bunch of things in there that I probably shouldn't have.
I wouldn't be able to answer off the top of my head. I honestly haven't tried it on like a super small environment like that.
Most Raspberry Pis have more RAM than the smallest like cloud functions too, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not saying that cloud functions run on Raspberry Pis, people.
Peter, I got a business idea.
So I had a follow-on question to my first one. So given that you can run it almost everywhere or anywhere, it seems not unfeasible to even run it on a mobile device, right? So would it be possible is the first question, and then is it a good idea is the second question. So what do you think?
I think, well, from what I know about Genkit, it shouldn't have issues with. I don't see why it would have a serious memory requirement, because we're not really running local models or anything. It's hard for me to see why it would take a huge amount of memory. I do think that it does seem to be a natural fit for mobile devices, because anything that runs JavaScript should be able to run Genkit.
So it should be possible to run it on an Android device, for example, right? I mean, Noe, you worked on Chrome DevRel before, right?
Chrome OS DevRel.
Chrome OS. All right. So it's not Android, but yeah. So it's
well, actually, so we had this thing called the Android container that sat on Chrome OS, and now Chrome OS is moving to be like a unified thing. It's the strategy there has changed quite a bit, but I know when it was running the Android container, you could still run Android apps, right? It would just launch this container that would then run Android. And then on that container that was running Android, then you could run the app, and it would have to load all of GMS core or something. There's a lot to it. And you could also run PWA's Chrome apps, which I don't believe are supported anymore. And there's a few other bits and bobs and extensions, right? So there's a lot of different ways to run apps. The way that I liked was PWA's, but you could run full screen Android apps on there. Long-winded way of saying yes.
Yeah, and so I did a quick search, and it seems like you can run JavaScript apps on Android. So people are saying, well, the most straightforward way to do it is to run it in the web view component. I'm not sure if that is still the most up-to-date answer, but it seems to be possible. But anyway, so for the sake of my question, let's just assume it is possible. But now the question is it a good idea, right? So should people try to, if they say, okay, so I built my functionality, I used Genkit, now I want to run it, should they try to package that and put it into their mobile application, or what would we recommend? What would you recommend they do, Jeff?
I guess the question is really, if you're a mobile app, what kind of LLMs would you use for your application, right? Because I think that if you're going to use an LLM in your mobile app, then probably it does make sense to use an abstraction layer like Genkit that makes it easy to leverage these models in a familiar interface, lets you switch models when you want to, gives you access to Dev UI and other things to monitor. So I think all of those things, if you want to use an LLM in any situation, I think it makes sense to use the framework. Now the question is, what LLM would you choose to use on a phone, on device? I think there are two choices there. I think there are some very small LLMs that actually run on your phone. So I could where I see the utility of those very small LLMs would be maybe taking an input and deciding and doing a routing thing to decide which model to use. And maybe a lot of cases you can go with the cheapest model, right? So I think your question is really what is the right pattern for LLMs on mobile? And so I think Genkit would make sense in any case, as long as you have the problem of needing swappability and needing easy adaptable interface to onboard onto LLMs. I think, and you use TypeScript. I think those are all, or Go. or Python.
Or Python.
Peter, were you saying like running Genkit on device?
Yeah, that is, I was maybe I intended it as a leading question, but yes, my question was, should you run Genkit on device, or is it better to run it on the server and then talk to the server from your client, right? So the fact that you can technically run it on the device doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that you should not run it on device, and the whole reason is I want to be able to like put some limits on people talking to my LLM, right? So I don't necessarily want my API key sitting on somebody's device where they just like hammer my LLM like nonstop, right? I want to have some sort of gate that they'd have to go through, and like maybe even something like app check, like, oh, do they pass an attestation, right? So like the Vertex AI SDKs, I think, get it right when you don't want to like deploy a cloud function or do anything like that, where you can talk straight to Vertex AI and Gemini, where they have app check, and then they also have like per user rate limits, so you can limit how many requests each of your users can make to the LLM per minute or something. I think like the default is 100 per minute or 100 per hour. I can't really recall, but that's how I see it. Maybe I misunderstood the question.
I think I misunderstood the question. I think you're right. I think I think the only thing I think what I was thinking about was like, since I've been working with Ollama recently, there's some of these small models. That's the use case where I could see maybe it makes sense to run Genkit on device. But you're totally right. Yeah, I misunderstood the question. I think your pattern is definitely the right way.
Yeah, but I mean, so let's just brainstorm a little bit. So let's imagine that you do want to run some stuff on the client, and I think, Jeff, you said some sort of routing algorithm that is able to decide, oh, the user asked this or that question. I think we can answer this locally using on-device LLMs, or we have to send this off to the server because this requires tapping into a database or calling an external service, and we want to do that on the back end. So I think that kind of stuff would be interesting. But in addition to that, I think it might also be interesting to have some sort of orchestration there, right? So I think, and that is what one of the big benefits of Genkit, having those abstractions that make it easy to connect LLMs to tools, to databases, and all the other things that are relevant for AI algorithms. And I imagine that it might be interesting to have something similar that you can use on the client, right? So maybe some sort of supercharged Vertex AI and Firebase SDK that is capable of tapping into your local database, right? So for example, many apps do have data stored locally, right? So let's imagine I have a note keeping application and I want to ask the question about stuff in my notes. There is no need for the app to go to the server, right? So because technically I could answer those questions locally, right? And then I'd have to implement some sort of RAG algorithm locally. And then I'd want to have this kind of aggregation or orchestration framework.
But then you need a smart model. You need an advanced model that you can access locally to generate a quality output. I think that's where I can. Yeah. Good.
I was gonna say Gemma, right? Gemma's pretty good for like on-device models. Gemma. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
I've heard Gemma.
I think it's Gemma.
Gemma. Yeah.
Yeah. We support Gemma through Ollama plugin in Genkit. So I think that actually would, if Gemma works well on mobile, I could see that potentially being something that works.
Yeah. So, but if that makes sense, then probably it might make sense to have some sort of to have a Kotlin version of Genkit and a Swift version of Genkit and a Dart version of Genkit of sorts, right? I don't know. Is Chris listening? Is Chris on the live stream?
Pavel was a minute ago, so
Yeah, Paolo's still here.
There he is.
He's helping with the pronunciation.
Gotcha.
I really like that
Gemma.
Pavel is not going down the road of trying to explain to us how to pronounce Gemma by saying it's pronounced the same way as this graphics format, which name I'm not going to say.
Genkit, Gemma. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jeff, is there anything in this NotebookLM clone that we didn't talk about that you absolutely want to demonstrate or talk about?
I think we've gone through pretty much everything.
Cool. Sorry, do you have anything that you want to grill Jeff on?
Maybe off stream.
I see. Okay, so we have another question coming in via the stream, and I think we should answer that, or look at it and see if we want to answer.
You want?
Ooh.
Wow.
So I kind of have like a serious, not serious answer. I think if I had unlimited time and resources and I wasn't working here, I've been like lifting weights recently. Thank you all for commenting on how big I've been looking. And I think I would want to build a home gym, right? Like that's just been at the top of my mind recently, and it's not really answering the question and I think the spirit of it, but that's what I'd want to do the first time. That's like the first thing I would go out and build is like a home gym or something.
So nothing computer related at all.
Yeah, just something to like, be a little analog for a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Yeah. In the same vein, I would probably, find the time to finally set up the model railway that my parents keep on asking me about whenever they visit. They're like, so how's the model railway going? I'm like, well, I get around to do that when I finish this job here. How about you, Jeff?
Well, I hate to say it, but I'm probably along the same lines as you guys. Probably built I've always, I've always been inspired by these like Airbnb projects, like tiny home projects that people have made. I've always wanted to buy my own plot of space and build something small like that is interesting, unique, it can house people. So
yeah. I think a lot of like what I'm desiring is like do things with my hands. Like recently there's something that broke here in like the garbage disposal broke, and I was like, how hard can it be to fix a garbage disposal, right?
Ooh.
So I
don't touch the plumbing.
Oh, Peter, that's the one thing I'm not afraid to touch. I'm like, I can deal with water spraying all over the place. I got flood insurance. It's fine.
All right. Okay.
Electrical, I will not touch.
Oh yeah, that's way more dangerous. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think, Nui, next time we run the stream, you should come on dressed up as Super Mario. As a plumber.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could do that. I can, I'll just show up with a plumber's wrench, I guess.
Yeah, and the dress. Oh yeah, woohoo! I don't know. We don't have those sound effects in here, but we have this one. All right. Yeah, I think that was great. Thanks, Jeff, for coming on, and it was super inspiring. I love seeing what's possible with Genkit and putting together tools. And I think that is one of the beauties of AI. You can just put together stuff and make stuff happen that would have been unthinkable just a couple of years ago, right? So I remember when I tried to build an iOS application that, do you remember Eliza? This thing that you can talk to, or it's the Eliza test where Turing test, sorry.
Yeah.
You try to figure out is the opposite party a human being or not, right? And I had this idea of basically plugging into Siri and the synthesis algorithm to implement this AI thing that is Eliza. And if you compare that to what we can do now, it is light years between that and what you can do now. So this is just amazing. All right. So thanks again, Jeff, for coming on. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Sorry about the technical issues, but I think with 28 people still watching, I think we've recovered, and it's going to be interesting what we do with the recording. So maybe we can stitch them together, and then put them into the first one, so that people coming to the recording will have a good experience seeing the conversation and wondering what happened in the middle there. So fingers crossed it's not going to happen again next time. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to kill the stream right now. So if we go off, that's totally on purpose. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.